We're at First Creek Trailhead again and taking a third shot at Mount Wilson. We made it the second time to about halfway point. We weaved through the first very brushy, rocky part of the canyon and successfully made it to the First Creek Canyon, and part way up. Now we're going to continue on. So there you see Mount Wilson, and to the left Indecision Peak, and to the right of Mount Wilson is Rainbow Mountain, and then you can see Bridge Mountain. So we've got our work cut out. One day we'll make the top of Mount Wilson. There are two summits, the left and the right. The right summit is the true summit, and you can see a cliff there. You can look straight down 3,000 feet when you're on that point. And one of these days we're going to make that point, but today we're just going to push a little further and see how far we can get up First Creek Canyon. So here we go. Well, things are pretty straightforward at first. There's the main trail, and we'll look back here. Here's where we have come from, and you can see pretty wide trail, very nice. There's some rocky sections, but for the most part the surface is very good. And so we're going to continue on up this trail. In a bit we're going to hit some rabbit trails. That's where it starts getting a little complicated, and I'll guide you through that rabbit trail system. Okay, I mentioned there were a number of rabbit trails, and this is the first split in the trail. And you can see that there's a trail that looks a little more like a main trail off to the left. So I'm going to stick to that main trail. But one thing about this is here's First Creek Canyon, just on the other side of these rocks ahead. And we don't want to stray too far from First Creek Canyon. This is a little detour to the right that goes right along First Creek Canyon. And I believe if you want to go down into First Creek Canyon, there's a cool waterfall down there and a little creek area. Great place to rest. So you can enjoy First Creek by going down this way to the right. However, if you want to continue on and you're going the long route up the canyon itself and toward the summit of Mount Wilson, you want to take this larger left, and they'll meet again in a bit further up the trail. Our goal is, well, here's Mount Wilson, and to the left Indecision Peak, and what we're doing is going up the canyon between the two. And we hit these rabbit trails, and this is the first challenge of this adventure. The next challenge is going to be navigating rocks and brush. So stay tuned. We're going to experience that very soon. Well, there are a couple more rabbit trails that broke off to the right. Here's a little trail that goes off to the left, but you just want to stay on what looks like the widest trail, and it's going to keep winding around. We're getting close to the brush. There will be a few more rabbit trails, but we're continuing on up, and there's the canyon, and here's Mount Wilson. Here's Indecision Peak, and we're heading toward that canyon, keeping First Creek still in sight and fairly close to the right of us, and you can see the depression there where First Creek would be located, where you see that line of trees ahead. So we're not going to descend into First Creek at all for a ways to go here. There'll be a couple descents into First Creek coming ahead, but it's important to navigate this area correctly in order to avoid getting sidetracked on the wrong rabbit trail, or a little later hung up in the abundant brush that we're going to experience soon. Okay, continuing on. Okay, we're continuing up the closest thing to a main trail. It's a pretty well beaten path. Just wanted to show you though, there's a close brush with First Creek, which is always very close to our right. And here's a little way right down to First Creek. Beautiful little creek. So you can see that the canyon itself is always not too far from our right as we head up this more well-beaten path, which is continuing up this way. Here's a look down the path. So you can see it's not huge, but at the same time, it's, you know, wide enough that you can still tell it's the main path. And here you see Mount Wilson closing in on it, Indecision Peak, and we're heading straight between the two. Okay, continuing on. First Creek still to the right. And you'll notice that there's a ridge, which is actually the edge of the canyon, immediately to our left. And here you see Indecision Peak becoming larger. Mount Wilson through the trees, also growing in size or closeness. And so the challenge is to continue to weave around these rabbit trails. There are about 15 or 20 different split-offs that they all look like they lead somewhere, but you want to just stay with First Creek to your right and not rise too much higher to the left here. So continuing on here, you see a split to the right, and that ridge still to our left, but at this point we want to take the split to the left that goes up this hill. Why do I say that? Looks like this has been, the split to the right has kind of been blocked off. Somebody has said, hey, go to the left. And then here's a little additional verification. There's a little cairn here. Now, I can't guarantee this cairn's going to be here in the future, but here's Indecision Peak, continuing to close in on Mount Wilson. And so we're rising up a little bit. We're rising out of the deeper part of the canyon. Just to give you an idea what's down this way is, see how close we are to First Creek. So First Creek is still immediately below us to our right as we're continuing upward through the canyon. But as I mentioned, a lot of little rabbit trails, a lot of choices, and it took me a few times to get to where I am now without going down the wrong rabbit trail. So far we're right on track. Here we go. Okay, shortly after that last cairn, the trail looked like it was heading down into First Creek, a little too close for my comfort as far as being on track. So I ascended to the top of that ridge that was on our left. And actually, you could take a route that goes along the top of that ridge. And you can see all the way down to where we began. See some cars glistening in the rising sunlight at the trailhead, and behind those cars is Blue Diamond Mountain. You can also see clouds starting to gather. We've got till about 11 o'clock before there's a 20% chance of rain. And you definitely don't want to be anywhere in the Rainbow Mountains climbing over these Jurassic period frozen sand dunes because these rocks become like an ice skating rink when they're wet. So we want to get in and out before there's any chance of rain. A bad scenario would be to get way up into the canyon, climb over a lot of these dry rocks, and then it starts to rain and we got to descend over a lot of slick boulders on the way down. So we don't want that to happen. Anyway, now we're on top of that ridge. First Creek Canyon is still closely to the right, but you see it's deeper down there now because we're not close to First Creek, as we were before at least. And we're continuing along a little higher and yet keeping the canyon to our right. Okay, and by the way, there's the opening we're looking for. Okay, here we go. Well, I'm staying a bit high and keeping First Creek Canyon still to the right. And you see the drop off down here. And now it looks like, oh, maybe I should go up here in this direction. No, don't do it. Head down this little trail and you're going to descend again. You're going to go around these two hills or little ridges in front of us and weave around there. So let's head down and along. Remember, we're keeping First Creek Canyon not too far from our right here. And now you can see in sharper view First Creek Canyon going upward. That's the direction we're going. And there's Mount Wilson. Here's Indecision Peak. Okay, it's a real puzzle. And I can tell you, if I did this again, I could easily take the wrong rabbit trail. But so far, we are directly on track. Here we go. Okay, here's our first view of the brush that we're facing. My goal is to head around. There's Indecision Peak and there's a ridge right here, and to head around the lower side of this ridge, and yet to keep to the left of First Creek. There's First Creek on my right, and here's that ridge to the left, and here's an example of the narrow opening that we're going to be facing. This, we want to get over this ridge, and our goal is to find a band of red sandstone, and that will show us we're on track. So here we go. Let's hope we didn't get too far down in the weeds here. Okay, continuing on. We made it through those weeds there. That was our first big encounter with brush. It wasn't too bad, actually. And here's First Creek, still to the right. You can hear it down there. And it's good that we went low, because had we been higher, we would have had to go over that ridge and then down and then up this ridge, and we would have been in the boulders and done some bouldering, and that's fine. But if you're heading for the long run up to Mount Wilson, you want to keep from bouldering as much as you can, especially in this lower section, because that just eat up all your time. Now, here's another little rabbit trail. You could go down to the right, and that would put us down into First Creek. However, here is a pathway that goes upward. I think now it's time to head upward a bit. We'll see if we can hit that band of red sandstone. So here we go. And by the way, there's another option that heads more straight up onto this ridge. You don't want to go that high. So it's always a matter of, on the one hand, you don't want to go down to the right, down into the bushes, all the brush and the weeds down there. You don't want to go too high, because that's going to put you bouldering and eat up a lot of time before you even get to where Mount Wilson actually, what I'd say, begins. The climb actually begins. So taking the middle path right up this way. Okay, we've risen pretty sharply, and you can see down into the canyon. There's no way you're going to navigate that brush down there. Maybe there's a way, but could get a little brutal. And on the other hand, you see a lot of paths beckoning you upward to the left, but this is a ridge, and you know, if you just keep going up, you're going to get hung up in this ridge, and this may be a pathway that climbers take. It's a popular climbing spot, Indecision Peak area. And so you could be going up a climber's trail that ends at the cliff, where if you're a climber, that's great. You're a rock climber. But if you're trying to get up First Creek Canyon, once again, take the middle path. Don't descend down to the right and into the First Creek underbrush. Don't go up to the cliffs of Indecision Peak, but keep trying to navigate the middle path that hugs the area right between the Indecision Peak foothills and the First Creek Canyon underbrush. And look at the big picture, because if you keep the big picture in mind, where you're headed, that's a lot better than detailed, granular directions. So stick to a middle path as much as you can. We're going to go up here and see if we hit that band of red sandstone. And it looks like we're already on some red sandstone, but I'll show you what I mean in just a moment. Sure enough, we ascended just over that rise that you saw in the last section. And now here's that band of sandstone, and you can see the path. See, a path appears, disappears, appears, disappears along the way. So you just have to know when to go up, when to go down. And what we're going to do now, you can see ahead there's a ridge. Now we know we have to get around that ridge, and so that is going to take descending into the First Creek Canyon in a bit in order to get around this ridge, because you can see from here you're not going to go up too high. So this is one place that soon we're going to have to descend into the canyon right down next to First Creek, and we'll actually cross First Creek and weave through a tunnel of underbrush. So you'll see that there is a way, but you got to take the exact way, or you're going to either get hung up on the boulders and the brush and the rock up to the left, or you're going to get dead-ended by all the brush down to the right. So there's only one way that leads you through, and where we're headed, the next waypoint is going to be, see this rock over here? It's kind of pointing up right in the center. We're going to end up, after we go down into First Creek and then come back out, we'll be crossing First Creek, going through a brush tunnel. We're going to come back out right about where that rock is, and that will, just keep the big picture in mind. You know that you got to be there. You got to be close to that rock. So here we go, over the band of sandstone, red sandstone, and then we're going to descend into First Creek and cross it and go through a brush tunnel. And believe me, it is a brush tunnel, you'll see. By the way, by the time you get to this point, you've probably seen a few hikers wandering around like lost souls because this is a point, by the time you get here, a lot of people have turned around because you just get confounded, and I certainly turned around not too far from here the first time I came up. Every time I take this route, I push a little further and find a way that takes me there. But yeah, I've turned around myself a few times, but you'll find yourself pretty much alone by the time you hit this spot. A better look at the band of red sandstone. You can see some beavertail cacti along the edge. This lets you know you're on course. When you see this ledge ahead of you, you've made the first major waypoint, really. You've made it into the canyon through the rabbit holes or rabbit trails. And now the goal is to navigate some pretty heavy brush. There is a way you can do it. If you follow the path that I'm going to show you, there's a way you can do it without any bushwhacking or getting hung up in the brush. So follow me here. Look back, there is the band of red sandstone, and by the way, you don't want to cross that ledge when it's wet because you will go down. Anyway, yeah, we descended into the underbrush, but weaved around through that underbrush to this point. By the way, there's Indecision Peak, and here is Mount Wilson. And now we're rising up and continuing to weave around here. Looks like we're on track so far. Okay, onward. Here's that boulder that we were looking at a moment ago, sticking up and pointing a little bit to the right. And so keeping the big picture in mind, you see a tree there. Now that tree may change with the seasons. Right now it's brighter green than everything around it. But the thing that you really want to look at is there's a boulder up ahead. And you want to wind around till you hit that boulder, you get to that boulder. Now, once again, there are ways that beckon you upward. I would caution you not to take the upward path, although I'm not sure. We'll find out. I'm going to continue along this path here and navigate around beneath these boulders just to the right. We'll see where that leads us. To go beneath this boulder, you can see as you get close to it, there's a little rabbit trail that looks like it's beckoning you to go above the boulder. However, if you instead go beneath the boulder, you'll see here a cairn. And I'm going to trust this cairn is saying, don't go above that boulder, go beneath and continue to navigate in this direction. Although as you look ahead, and this is what you're facing a lot of the time, you look ahead and it looks like the trail certainly must end. And yet, as you round a boulder or pass through a brush, you can see that the trail continues. So let's try this beneath these boulders, and if this doesn't work, we'll go above the boulder here. Okay, because it does look like this trail cannot continue. Okay, let's go ahead and try. I was correct. The semblance of a trail continued. You did need to descend to the right beneath those boulders, and as you can see, we're still on track. And now begins the tunnel. This is the brush tunnel. Give you an idea of, well, it's actually, I think there's even a more substantial brush tunnel, but this gives you an idea what you are navigating. You're navigating boulders and brush, and now we are descending into First Creek for the first time and navigating these boulders up ahead. As you can see, we're down at First Creek, and anything that looks like an actual trail has pretty much disappeared, and we're just going to navigate boulders and try to keep from the brush on our right. We don't cross First Creek yet, and so here we go. Let's see what happens. Looking down on those boulders, and it reaches a dead end of boulders. However, right at this point, it looks as if the trail, if you could call it that, continues. We take a right over the boulders on our right and continue along. Looks like there's a way here, and this might be where we hit that brush tunnel. But anyway, so far we've been exactly on course. Yes, another little traillet appears here, right over beyond where we were in that last little section. And here is indeed, well, this gives you an idea what we're navigating here. But you can see, yes, it's a trail. How you get here is a real question unless you take every little twist and turn that we've taken so far. And now we enter the brush tunnel. So you can see, wow, we are definitely going through a tunnel of brush. Thought I'd take you through here just so you could see that, yes, we are in the midst of all that underbrush that we saw from above. And yet, here, surprisingly, is a way through without having to, I got too many things in my hands here, just a minute. Without having to bushwhack at all. But yeah, I'm squeezing through here. But the good news is that if you find this exact spot, yes, there is a way. And this is how you get through that brush. And by the way, lots of stones like this that you're going to walk up and down, and when they're dry, no problem. Your shoes have traction. But there are so many opportunities to slip and injure yourself when these stones are wet. That once again, check the weather and make sure that you do not try Mount Wilson and get hung up here way up in this area when it starts raining, because then you've got to navigate a whole lot of these stones. Yes, and they look easy enough now. Boy, when they're wet, they're like an ice skating rink. And you will be very fortunate if you do not slip. Okay, so here we are in the midst of boulders, and we're just looking. We know, hey, that doesn't look like a good way to go. However, we look around this way, and yes, this semblance of a trail continues here. So it's a matter of weaving around and navigating over boulders and through underbrush. So I'm gonna put the camera down so I can navigate a little better. Okay, so far every decision we've made is exactly correct, and to my thinking, the only decision you could make, possibly. Okay, we go through the brush tunnel and we end up on this little plateau, and of course we are now to the right of First Creek. First Creek is on our left, and if you went up this way, you'd see a beautiful little pond. That's a great place to just rest. But you also see these huge boulders all around you. So no, this is not the way to go. So let's go back down where we were. And actually right before the pond is where we're going to cross over to the other side of First Creek and then head upward. And you see boulder up here. You want to travel just beneath that boulder navigate beneath the boulder. So you're going to rise up, and there will be a way beneath that boulder, and then you're going to descend again into First Creek Canyon, and it's going to be dry at that point. I think First Creek must be underground. There will be gravel bed that you are, and fine gravel that you are walking along. You'll see in a moment. But the point is, you cross First Creek. You can hear frogs in this little pond. Pretty cool. You never find them though. You can listen to them, but just try to take a look at it, and as soon as you get anywhere near, they'll stop croaking and disappear on you. But anyway, what I was saying is that you see some stepping stones. That's where you cross First Creek and then ascend up to just beneath and cross just beneath this boulder up here. Okay, onward. Another look at the pond. You can see the little skater bugs skating along on the water. It is possible to walk on water, but I guess you got to be a skater bug to do it. Love to have that capability. Okay, and you can see the little stepping stones here. Here is the other end of that pond as it dives down through the canyon. First Creek is pretty beautiful, but there are only a few spots that you can actually see it. Okay, so what we're going to do is cross these stepping stones, ascend upward, and you can see a semblance of a trail up there, and cross under the large boulder up here. Okay, and then we're going to descend again into First Creek Canyon. Okay, here we go. Well, we passed that boulder. There it is up there. And actually there was a way up to the boulder, but if you look very carefully, there's a trail that was lower. And we're continuing along that trail, and we're going to descend soon back into First Creek Canyon. Actually, there's the boulder we were looking at from the pond, and here we have ascended. We're still crossing under it, and continuing to head along here. Let's go up here and see what it looks like. So I just want to show you where the next descent is into First Creek. Okay, we're going to continue on up here. I'm going to need both hands, so I'm going to pause for a moment. Okay, there are some cairns along the way, and so you can begin following cairns around here, and that will help guide your way. I just came over this area here, and you can see another cairn down here. So we've risen up, as you can see. You don't want to be down in that brush, that's for sure. But we're going to descend soon and then be in the canyon once again. So once again, here's the direction we are headed. And let's continue onward. I'll show you where that descent is. Okay, shortly after that rock with the cairn that we looked at from the other side. Here we are. It's time to descend into the canyon. And you can see a very steep, loose rock trail, or way, I guess. You couldn't even call it a trail, that goes down into the canyon. We're going to take that. Here we are in the canyon. I just came down from this higher area. And now we're doing some bouldering. And so we're going to continue navigating through this canyon now and just see if we entered it at the right moment. We may have entered it too soon or too late, but we'll know very soon.